Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel for another Out of the Park 22 video. In today's video, I'm going to look at the new trading AI in Out of the Park 22. The trade AI was upgraded this year, so I wanted to take a look at that. I've simulated a franchise mode up to mid-July. I've taken over the Dodgers. I thought the Dodgers would be a decent team to test out the trade AI with because they have a lot of assets that other teams would want, so it'll give me a lot of options as I test out different trades. To start, I'm going to keep the sliders that you see on the screen here set to default. Previously, this was a drop-down menu, and I put the trade difficulty on the hardest setting with heavily favors prospects, and still didn't find the trading difficult enough. I was messaging with one of my patrons, and he kind of summed it up perfectly in saying that in previous versions of Out of the Park, you could always find a favorable trade when you had a need on your team. But this isn't always the case in MLB. Sometimes you can't fill holes on a team through trade, so it would be cool if the trading was more difficult in that way, to where it's harder to sometimes or impossible to sometimes fix things on your team that need fixing. So I'm going to try a few different types of trades today, probably 4 different types of trades. And just disclaimer, these are just examples, anecdotes, and while this can help give a feel for the AI and is a good way to test it out, if I find bad trades, it doesn't mean the trading AI is bad. There's always going to be exceptions to these kind of things. Even in real life, like the Cardinals traded Nolan Arenado and $50 million for who and what? No, I mean, they were fine players, but it was Nolan Arenado. I mean, the Edmonton Oilers traded Taylor Hall for Adam Larson, right? So bad trades happen. So just because I find bad trades isn't a criticism of the game or anything, but this will maybe help give us a feel. So again, leaving these set to the default here in the middle for the difficulty and the preference of veterans over prospects. And in the past, it was entirely too easy, I thought, to find trades on these settings. So let's test it out. So I'm the Dodgers here, and let's go to the standings just see, because one thing that they've improved upon this year is teams being more situational with their trades. And so the situation here for the Dodgers here is they're in mid to late July 19th. We are a game and a half behind the Diamondbacks for first place. We're way up in the wild card, 6.5 up on the next best team. So we are competitive, but we've got some injuries. Let's go to, why did I go there? There we go. And, Gavin Lux and Corey Seager, our middle infield is basically decimated, both with broken kneecaps. So let's go out and try to find a shortstop to start. And the way I'm going to do that to start is I'm going to go to the trading block and look at the shortstops out there. So Carlos Correa is available. He's a little banged up. He's got a day-to-day injury, but he's 26, and the Astros are out of it. They are not in the contention. They're 44-50, 9 games out of the West. They're 8 games out of the wild card with like a million teams between them. So this is a team that would probably be looking to sell Correa if they weren't going to re-sign him, which they haven't done yet. So it's reasonable to believe that you could get Correa from the Astros in this situation if they weren't re-signing him and they were out of contention. So let's see what we can do here. So I'm assuming that if I gave up one of my top prospects, I'd get them, because the Dodgers have 3 top 100 prospects in this. And I think a good comp for real life is like the Manny Machado trade from the Orioles to the Dodgers several years ago. And in that was what major league teams seem to do when they get prospects. And it makes sense, is that they go for a lot of quantity over quality, because prospects are kind of like weighted lottery tickets in a way. And so you want to bring in 5 guys who might have a chance of becoming stars rather than 1 guy, right? Even if their chances of stars do vary, obviously, between players. And when Machado was traded to the Dodgers, the Orioles got back Yusniel Diaz was the top prospect. They got back 5 prospects. A few of them look like they might be solid major league players, but none of them were in. I looked it up recently, and none of them were in the Fangraphs top 131 prospects at the time of the trade. So. And the other thing is, Machado was an absolute superstar at that time. He's in the middle of a career year for an already great career. Correa, he's having a fine season. He's got a 127 OPS plus, 2 WAR. He's played in 89 games, but he really hasn't been a great player since like 2017. Since then, and not that he's not great, but just injuries have kind of derailed his career a bit. 2019 was great when he played. 2020, last year, he wasn't that great at the plate. His OPS plus was only 96. So Correa should cost far less than a guy like Machado, right? But let's just see, like, Josiah Gray is the number 27 prospect in baseball. I am thinking the Astros might do that. Yeah, they would. And again, you don't often see these 1-for-1 trades because major league teams, one, often aren't going to trade top 100 prospects, especially for a rental. And two, major league teams seem to prefer quantity over quality when it comes to prospects. But it makes sense to me that the Astros would absolutely jump at that deal. Another prospect is Andy Pages. He's a 73rd prospect. They'll do that. But what I want to see is, if I just go down here and start grabbing random dudes, like how cheap could we get Correa? And again, a guy like Machado, who was a rental in real life and was at that time having a far, far, far better season than Correa and a better track record over the previous couple seasons as well. He had some health concerns and a couple uneven years, but was considered a superstar at the time he was traded. Correa, I would not classify as a superstar at this point. So let's just take this guy, a random 35 rated prospect. And again, these overall potential are not the be-all, end-all to evaluate a player. They're the last thing I'd say you want to use to evaluate a player when you have stats, these ratings, and then the overall. But when you're looking at a huge group of players, they're helpful for this kind of thing, just a ballpark. So no, they're basically saying get lost when I'm offering them some mid-grade prospects. Let's throw in a center fielder. Let's throw in Ramos. So, these are two guys who are okay. I don't think either of them would be projected as major league. I mean, this guy could make the major leagues on a bad team, according to my head scout. So let's see if we make this work now, what they're thinking. Okay, so it's a lot of major league pieces and then a few prospects. This guy Miller's a top 100 prospect, I know. So here's the lowest rated to the potential, Donovan Casey. Is this guy any good? I mean, he's got a good glove. This guy, he's 25 though, right? But I could see if what's OSA think about him? OSA is a little higher on him. That he's got him up to a 40. Good here. So, I could see it would be reasonable if the Astros are higher on Casey than even OSA is, that they could see him as like a fourth outfielder. So a fourth outfielder, a lottery ticket, guy, this guy's 20 in rookie ball. Teams, if you look at my Orioles, they're rebuilding right now. A lot of the trades that they've made, they're like, just give us, they've gotten like guys who are at the international complex, 18, 19, 20 years old, guys who are still raw and they feel like they can mold. Maybe they see something in them. So I don't think this is crazy to get a rental shortstop for, Donovan Casey, who's maybe a fourth. I think they could dream on him and see him as a fourth outfielder. Kyle Hertz, who if they're dreaming on him, oh, wow. Okay, look at this. I forgot. OSA sees him as a league average player, possibly. And he's in A-ball, not doing well. But, this is another case where they probably see him as maybe like a fifth starter ceiling. So they're thinking they're getting back a fourth outfielder, a fifth starter, and then a lottery ticket. I think that's a fine trade. So let's go look at another one now. I wanted to see what it would take to bring in a rental. I wanted to see if we do something crazy, like let's try to get a shortstop from a team that shouldn't want to give up their shortstop, like the Mets, right? They're gunning for the postseason. And let's see if we could even get Francisco Lindor from them for like some hodgepodge group of prospects. So let's start with Josiah Gray, 27th. Oops, I forgot to move Lindor. And I guess that would help if I put Francisco Lindor in there. So he says it's an insult. 27th best prospect in baseball. Obviously it would take more to get Lindor. But at the same time, if you look at what Lindor was traded for, again, it was quantity over quality. So, but we're offering high quality. And when I mean Lindor's trade in real life. So another top 100 guy, Pages, he's like, no. And then the other guy in the top 100 is way down here, Bobby Miller. So I am offering 3 top 100 prospects to the Mets for Lindor, who's a pending free agent. They're not taking it because why would they? They're gunning for the playoffs. They want Lindor on their team. But honestly, like if you're just going value for value, like a superstar player on an expiring deal is not going to get you 3 top 100 prospects. Look at the Machado deal in real life, right? I mean, the days of when Chapman was traded, what was that? Gleyber Torres was in that deal, and Eloy was traded at one point. from the Cubs. Like the days of teams giving up top 100 prospects really seems to have faded since then, like the mid 10s in the decade. So, but I like that they're not willing to do this. So I'm curious though, if I just like take out everybody but Gray, and again, reminder, this is on the default settings. So if I say, okay, I'll give you a top 100, I'll give you the 27th prospect in baseball. This okay, they'll do it. Cool. If I put in Bellinger or Buehler, both are under team control for more than this year, they'll do it. Now, this trade wouldn't happen in real life, but because both teams gunning for the playoffs, I don't think would shake up their major league roster this much, obviously. But it's realistic to think that it would take Walker Buehler and Josiah Gray. Now, if I remove Gray, are they still willing to do it? They are. So another thing I want to do is see if I can reverse engineer this deal to make it a deal that the Mets shouldn't do. So I'm saying I need you to, nailed it. Okay, 75%. I need you to take on 75% of the deal. And he's like, I don't know about this, man. But Lindor's contract is coming off the books after this year. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is throw in a couple guys and then take Buehler out of the deal. So let's do it. Let's throw in some decent players, though. Let's see. Cartea is a top 200. He's like number 150 something prospect. So he's a good guy to have in here. All right. So 95% of the deal. Let's throw in another good player, like decent prospect. Let's throw in Michael Bush. All right. 100%. Do they want another guy? No. All right. So now we take it down to 0%, and let's see what they say if we take out Buehler. Oh, he's not having it. So what if I want to make this work now? Are there more guys? Nope. All right. So yeah, it looks like if I'm willing to put in Bellinger or Buehler, they'll think about trading Lindor. But other than that, that's a no-go from them. So that's good to see. On the default trade settings, it's good to see that the Mets, even when I offer them 3 top 100 prospects, which value for a superstar player on an expiring contract is great value, but situationally, it does not make sense for them, so they're not going to do it. I love that. I think that's great, especially since we're, again, on the default setting. So another thing I want to see is how easy does it trade for some top prospects? This one's for all you guys out there who have like Wander Franco and Adley Rutschman and every other top prospect on your Sims because you were able to acquire them. Let's try Christian Pache. I believe he's the 3rd ranked prospect in this. Let me double check. Yeah. So according to OSA, he is the 3rd ranked prospect. Let's see if I offer my 27th ranked prospect what they say. He says, get out of here. You got to be kidding. Pages? Nope. All right. Let's see. Is there anything I can offer you with my 2 top 100 prospects? You get no. And they have a decent amount of budget space. This is not that they can't afford players. They just don't even want to do it for a superstar. Or, well, I mean, for top prospects. Let's see, though, if they do it for a superstar. Let's throw in Walker Buehler and see what they say. Your offer is a non-starter. So they're just not willing to trade Pache. There we go. Okay, we found a deal. Miller is the top one. This is the 87th prospect in baseball. Or I could trade these guys who are all, Gratterall's a great reliever. May is a great young pitcher reliever who's going to be a starting pitcher, or Betts or Bellinger. So so I found a deal. Now I'm going to have them eat money and see what it'll take. We're going to try to get Buehler out of this deal to see if we can exploit it. Not exploit it, but all right, let's put Cartea in there. He's another top 200 prospect. Now we're going to take this down to 0, and let's see what they say about Walker Buehler. Stop wasting my time if I take out Buehler. Cool. So I've got in Josiah Gray. So Josiah Gray is the 27th prospect in baseball. Pages is 73rd. Miller is 87th. Cartea is 156th. And they will not give up the 3rd best prospect in baseball. I think that's awesome. I think that's great. Let's try one more here on the default settings. Let's try Adley Rutschman. The Orioles obviously in rebuild mode. I wonder if Rutschman is as untouchable. So let's start it off with, I think Dustin May is a good guy to start with. I think he'd be very attractive to other teams. OSA has him as an 80 potential, which is crazy. Too many 80 rated guys. But looks like he's a top half of the rotation pitcher, right? And he's 23. He's under team control for a while. He's cheap. Let's put him in and just see what their initial reaction is. Now that's a perfect proposal. Perfectly awful. All right. Thank you. Now let's offer Josiah Gray. You know, really here I'm offering them two arms who could pitch it near the top of the rotation for like a decade. And they're like, nope. All right. Let's see if I make this work now. Are we even getting in the ballpark here? So Ruiz is a very good catcher. He's the 131st best prospect in baseball. Cartea is a top 200 prospect. Galiz, I'm not as familiar with, but then these two guys are top 100 prospects, and then Bellinger, Betts, Bueller. So Galiz appears to be the weakest link here, but their thing, I guess, wow, he's only 17 though. And I mean, I know his catching isn't great, but the Orioles aren't necessarily as focused on what his catcher ability as us as human GMs would be. But looks like this is a pretty good hitting player for catcher. Might be a league average hitter. For a catcher, that's pretty darn good. And then they're going to, also have two guys who could pitch in their rotation likely very well for a while. So I'm impressed with the fact that on these default settings, it's more difficult to get top prospects. Now, you know, you could probably go around and you could say, all right, I'm going to get Rutschman, I'm going to get Pache, and I'm going to get Franco, and it doesn't matter who I give up. And it looks like maybe you can still get those guys, but it's costing a lot. But you're going to have to empty out your farm system to get them, which maybe is a fair price to pay because your team is then stocked for like a decade. But again, this is on the default setting. I think on the default setting, this is pretty decent. I'm going to play around with the trade slider some and try it with them further up as well, tweaked up so it's harder. But for today, I just want to look at it on this. And, my general impressions, I think this is decent. I haven't played with it on the default settings in a while. So maybe you guys, this is kind of normal and what you've seen in previous years and how people have gone out and gotten like, I don't know, 7 top 100 prospects on their team all at the same time. And they're like 23 and they have a dynasty for a decade. I've never tried to play that way. So maybe this is how you do it, and this doesn't look any different. So you guys definitely let me know in the comments if this doesn't look good or you think I'm off base with it. Because again, not how I've tried to play the game normally, but in general, based off of my trading experience, I think this is greatly improved just from having it on default. And I'm interested to see how it is on the harder settings too. Maybe once I have time to play around with that more, I'll do another video. But that's all for this one today. Hope you guys liked it, and I'll talk to you next time.